And the greatest thing about the rainforest in the Amazon is there are no leeches.
No leeches.
None. So it's very diverse again with very difficult to see is called the oso de anteojos, which is the spectacled bear that lives in the higher mountains. And the Pongo de Manica narrows in the Urubamba. It's one of the most beautiful places I think I've ever seen. And at the time in 1980, we came on this small village of Machagangas, and for a whole day, they completely vacated the village. We made our camp downstream, and then came back, and they slowly, one by one, came out. Unfortunately, they got pretty heavily handed by this German photographer, or German filmmaker, but I won't get into this. Amazing amount of diversity of trees, the coffee tree in the bottom, and the flooded forest in the bottom right. During the seasons, the rainy season, the forest will fill up with the whole Amazon basin, and the lower part of the forest becomes inundated 7-8 feet, sometimes higher. And a lot of the species of fish will come in, and the trees come into fruit, drop their fruit, and the fish like the giant piraku will feed on the fruit. So our trip in was amazing for me. My first trip to the Amazon was in 80, and I came back again in 81, 82, and took some people in with commercial trips. But to try and get in a remote forest like this before there was any help, we got a 4-wheel drive stuck in the river all night, and the river was rising in the rains, and finally we got a rope from the village the next day and hooked up, managed to cable our way out. And then heading downriver for one day, it was a day trip down the Madre de Dios River to connect to the Boca, and then to travel upstream, and we broke a shear pin in the prop. So I had to beach on an island and figure out how do you make a shear pin. So we figured out with a pente, a tent stake. There we go. We hammered it out and managed to get going. We're stuck for about a day. The silk cotton tree on the left, one of the largest trees. And that tree on the right is Sharia, which is related to dipterocarps in this area. And always a sign of a primary forest is these large lianas. And interestingly, the Amazon is not as wild as it was thought 100 years ago. It was heavily cultivated by Indians. Soil was transported, mounded. I don't know the complete story about it. It was quite amazing. Huge diversity of heliconids, banana family. That's cacao in the wild. And I apologize, I've forgotten the names of most of these plants, which I guess you can expect for a guy at 71. But that is passion fruit, passion flower. And again, another passion flower. This is an arboreal cactus that opens up and is bat pollinated. And unique communities that you find in a giant flatworm, but you have ant swarms and a group of birds that follow army ants. This is a termite hatch. These are the ant followers, the ant shrikes. And when the army ants bivouac, they bivouac for a period of maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks. Queen then produces eggs. The eggs are nurtured, and then they break, and then they tar a swarm and go into a new area on a cyclic basis. They'll raid termites, they'll raid bird nests, anything in their swath is literally tried to be captured by these ants and eaten. And then you have all the birds that are picking off the cicadas, the katydids, the grasshoppers, everything that's leaving this swarm of ants. The ant on the bottom right is got the most painful bite, and I didn't experience this, but I heard it from a researcher, called the paraponerine ant. It's about, I'd say, 4 let's see, inch is 2.5 centimeters, so about 4 centimeters long. Huge, huge ant. And a species of tarantula, it's called the bird-eating sparrow. Then, of course, you know about the leaf cutters. They have huge subterranean galleries for the growth fungus. And, oh boy, sorry, I forgot. Different species of spider. I love collecting butterflies. I don't do that anymore, but I donated a big collection to the university, and seeing some of the clear wings and morphos. The larva of the morpho feeds on the passion flower plant. Heliconids, and there's some tremendous relationships with mimicry. Matted, katydid. This is an interesting fungus. Maybe you've seen it. Oh, this was I felt like God must have had a sense of humor. This is a beetle with a happy face on it. Can you see it?
Yeah.
2 dots and a smile. But this is quite a bizarre fungus. It is picked up by weevils and beetles that forage along the bottom. So if a spore gets in it, it ends up sending mycelium throughout the whole body of the bug, attacks the brain, alters the brain, causes this weevil, in this case, to climb up to a top of a large tree or a plant sapling, and then disperses its spores, kills them. In my day, they didn't know about this, but I thought this was pretty cool. Oh, there's a little better shot of beetle with a happy face. All kinds of mimicry with praying mantids and katydids. You go out at light at night, and it's so fun to just keep your light at eye level, and just spot as many frogs and bugs as you can imagine. This is the famous Ceratophones. Looks like Humpty Dumpty, literally, with a huge mouth. But the chorus at night was amazing. You'd hear different sounds on the edge of an oxbow lake. Some that sound like you're drumming on a log, others with high shrills and all sorts of chirps. Yeah, it's pretty bizarre. And the tremendous diversity of hummingbirds, designed with bills that fit perfectly into helianthus. It's difficult to find nests, but amazing birds. Some of them are some of the longest. The North American hummingbirds are some of the largest migrators in the world. Spoonbills, kingfishers, and half-beaks. And this is a large vulture that's commonly found in the forest. And the parrot species diversity, I believe, is the greatest. Somebody might want to correct me on this, in South America. Interestingly, they come to clay licks. Are you familiar with the idea or the drive behind coming to a clay lick? They pick up some of the minerals. It's sort of the kaopectate for eating, for stomach ailments. So they eat a lot of fruits, and parrots are amazing, like the green wing, the blue and green wing macaws, scarlet macaws. They memorize. They lived over 100 years in the wild, but they memorize trees that come into fruit, so they can spatially and temporally know what trees come into fruit, what areas. But some of the fruits are toxic, and they'll come, they think, to these clay licks and coat their stomachs with clay to try and neutralize the toxins. So you'll see literally nearly morning thousands of birds that will come to different spots in the river. I love this bird. This is in the goose family, called the horned screamer. It's got a radio-controlled antenna on top. And these guys are great with the Watsons with the punk rock hairdo. And they have claws on their wings, so they can literally crawl out of the water as the young if they fall. They're really a big a flying bag of guts because they're vegetarians and they're eating leaves. So they're very noisy and very difficult to fly. But the bird diversity is just amazing. Owls and swans. Now that's a captive, and this is its wild. It's the upper left. Sorry. The card. Oh gosh, red-headed. Oh, I can't think of it. Anyway, these guys prey on monkeys, and so I did catch a pair of. When they come across the forest, they're amazing, and they're called, but the monkeys will hear them. They'll just drop out of the canopy like that. And interestingly, Jorge, the Peruvian, showed me how they hunt, and he can imitate harp eagle call, as well as a couple other, crowned eagle, I think was another one. He'd make the call as we were underneath watching some spider monkeys up on top. And when he made the call, the monkeys dropped 50, 60 feet out of the canopy. And if he had arrows, he wasn't allowed to hunt there, but if he had his arrows, he'd be able to pick them off. This is amazing. Skills on how they can imitate different bird calls. And the oropendulas that have huge communal nests, and trogons. Amazing groups of tanagers. This is one of the paradise tanager, I think, is one of the most beautiful tanagers in South America. Araucaria, toucans, fruit eaters. And some of these shots are done by birders that I know. To me, birding is, I say 60% of the shots are mine, but birders have a real capacity to do things that I'm not capable. They carry huge lenses that probably weigh, 3 or 4 kilos it seems. And they have patience, they know how to bait, they know, a lot of them call with the tape recorder, the bird calls, which I don't find necessarily something I want to do, but they're the ones that are really contributors to some of this beautiful photography of birds you see. So, my first week in the Amazon, I go up the river, didn't bathe, finally can meet the 2 park guards, Indian park guards, and I'm introduced, I have my permits, I have a guy with a gun with me, rifle because they're uncontacted mashkos in the area. And so I'm really getting smelly. They set up a tent, we set up a tent, we go cross country for 10 days, literally in the middle of nowhere, going up a couple tributaries way above where the researchers at Kochikashi were. And so I had to bathe. This was a perfect camping spot. Still water, nice tannin stain. And I said, okay, are there piranha in here? And they tell me in Spanish, no hay problema, Guillermo. Se puede nadar en esta cocha. I'm able to swim here, no problem. So I slowly take off my shirt, take off my clothes, and I look at the water watching for any movement down below. Finally just jump in, and it was fantastic. Cool and refreshing, bobbed up, and then Jorge comes running down the beach yelling at me, Bill, we forgot, get out of that water. If you don't, you won't be a father. So I flew out of that water, and they're hee-hawing on the bank. Just really, really think it was funny. So that night, I got them. We had a little bit of a catfish that we caught. They had an army pup tent with holes in the netting. So I waited for them to go to sleep. They would judiciously go through the ritual, plugging tissue paper in all the holes. So I took some leftover catfish, and I baited a line right to their tent. This was mean on my part, I have to admit. And then quietly opened up the zipper and threw pieces of cooked fish into their tent. And about 3 in the morning, I heard them yelping, and some fire ants got them. But they got me back. 3 days later, they got me back. And we're in the forest, and we hear this low rumble, this kind of, only there was about 150 of these low grunts. And I had no clue what it is. Again, I don't know anything about the forest. Sorry? You know, there were white-lipped peccary, a whole herd of about 150. And so they said, Bill, in Spanish, if you want to get a photograph, you know, no problem. Get up close, sneak up to them. Okay, well, I'm stupid. I don't know anything. I know about North American wildlife. I graduated in wildlife biology, but no clue about the tropical forest. So I kind of sneak up on them. All of a sudden, I saw this female with a group of shoats, little young, and she, like that, with her teeth, clamps, charged. So I flew up a tree, and the whole herd just scatters. And there, meantime, about 100 meters back, just hee-hawing. So this relationship was so amazing to really be able to see the forest through their eyes, and to understand how they live, how difficult it is to live in the forest, but also how I got to see creatures that I wouldn't see through their eyes, trying to capture a catfish, you know, with a machete during one of these big pools. Huge catfish. That was quite an experience. Or we weren't supposed to do this, but we really didn't have a lot of food, and they're not paid well, if at all. And so we had to collect turtle eggs. There's a huge turtle called the side-neck turtle that brings its head to the side when it tries to evade being harmed. Will come up at night and lay its eggs during the dry season, so you'll have big clusters of turtles like our greenback turtle in the saltwater. And you'll find cat tracks all up and down the beaches that will scoop these eggs up and eat them. Well, that's what they did. We ate them as well. So it was quite an amazing time. So that's the side-neck turtle, very, very large turtle on the top. And this was in the Cocha, where there actually, there were no piranha in this lake, by the way, but I learned later in the Rio Napo and the areas you can swim with piranha. It's no problem. Only during the dry season when they concentrate and there's little food can they get aggressive. But that's the red-bellied on the top. One of the most fun things I got to encounter were the giant otters. And we found a den. It was amazing how they would call, and I'd kill my throat if I do it, but oh, like that, how they hit their throat and they can call them right up to them. Very territorial. They mark their areas of the Cocha with very smelly urine, but amazing animals. And then the spectacled caiman, which lays, this female is on a nest of eggs. And the capybara, the largest rat in the world. Well, this is the wild javelina, the pigs. Do you know what a capybara is? Have you heard of that? It's about a 60-pound rat with no tail. Loved by most animals. And so it did see a wild jaguar. That's the farthest shot on the right. It had a belly full. We got closer and closer. Belly full. It had just eaten, and then it just rolled off. And this is a catfish that has a horrible reputation. A little tiny thing called the candiru. And when I was told the story about this, I wore 2 bathing suits. This catfish actually sucks blood off the gills of larger fish. But it's said that it will swim up the urethra of a man or women. If you've heard of this, oh Lord have mercy! I didn't like that, but it turned out later there's only, I think, been 1 incidence of that actually recorded happening where one had the surgery removed. But again, it's all these stories you hear as a kid that your mind just creates great imagination. And that's a captive ocelot, but we'd see ocelot tracks in the morning. We did see tapir, and this was an interesting situation. These girls, this is a Machaganga camp way upriver. They have to defend themselves at night. They put this one spine, I should have described this. It's a black palm. It's got huge spikes that are about this long. They'd actually line on the trails coming around their village, these spikes. So if somebody comes into the village, they'll step on it, scream, whatever. Well, these were mashkos that had maybe 1 or 2 contacts, but maybe not. And the 2 park guards I had stopped. And I told them, you know, in Spanish, don't do this, there could be an ambush in the back. And nothing happened, but the women were covered with huge fly bites, and they were really bizarre. They were very excited, didn't know what to do, and they gave them a plot. Well, this was in 1980, and there was a Catholic priest trying to contact them. So this is a true group, and I made the mistake saying 2015. They were contacted in 2015, but a tour group went up in 2011, took these shots, and these guys actually fired arrows at them. So what I was warned to 35 years before was amazing. And this was from the Peruvian government. I did get a clip of this. You could hear them talking in Spanish if you heard this. But the fear is these Indians have been so hammered by the rubber baron age and the Spaniards that forced them. They came into this remote area, headwaters of Manu, and into the Urubamba, and they've killed anybody that's gone in. And miners have gone in, they've been attacked, and so there's been some exchange. And this was just a few years back where they just came out of the forest out of nowhere. So there are still tribes that have no contact that have been in the area. So I had the opportunity working with the Smithsonian group of researchers that came out to teach a bunch of teachers from the United States in a workshop in Rio Napo. So through there, it's putting out bat mist nets, and herpetologists and entomologists who got to collect a tremendous number of boas and snakes and bugs and insects, and got a chance to film. Top left is the emerald tree boa. Beautiful, beautiful snake. The agama lizard. The cat-eyed snake. This is a culebrid, not poisonous. This is poisonous, and this is a fer de lance, which is a rear fang. Almost stepped on it. The size, might as well photograph it. And the different species of bats are amazing. Again, 578 species in Colombia. Amazing design with their ability to echo